Hey, everybody. This is Solomon, Book 1, Sapphire Eyes, Chapter 6, The Midnight Dragon. The next time the tribe assembles for story time, Solomon notices that one is missing. Where's Ichiman? He asks. Silence. Then someone snickers. Probably crying to his mama, one boy says with glee. Smiles and laughs ensue. Damien had to beat that ass real quick. Solomon sees the marks and swelling on Pebbles' face, a slight gloat of victory strutting in his eyes. He thinks Solomon can't see his shame, but he can. But also, Solomon knows this is a trap. He's seen this one before. The one where Solomon might say something judgmental, something like, I expected better of you, Pebbles. Then Pebbles will cuss him out and they will all leave and never come back. Heartbreak is his teacher. This transcends tribal law. It's more like human law. Humans are strange. Sometimes life gets complicated. Relationships get complicated. And all we want is an easy way out. So we stop time, like in the movies, load the gun, walk over to the one we love, frozen over there, cradle their hands around the gun, finger on the trigger, pull the trigger back till it's a hair's breadth from firing, extend their hands in the gun in firing position, take our position right in front of the barrel to our chest, raise our chin, and brace ourselves. Unstop time and shout, Boo! Pebbles is staring at Solomon. Solomon looks into his eyes. What? Pebbles asks angrily, almost shouting, bracing himself. Solomon smiles, deftly untangling his finger from the trigger. It went down like this, and the story, grinning, swallows them all. Have you ever been in the presence of a dragon? Of course not. Your eyes don't have that haunted look, like someone reached in your chest, took out your heart, threw it into a volcano, and made you sniff the vapor. What's it like, you ask? You only think you want to know, but I will tell you, you tender little dragon snacks. You plump little hors d'oeuvres. Three things. First, being in the presence of a dragon is like the Grand Canyon. I mean, like someone dangling you over the Grand Canyon by a piece of thread around your waist. Terror and awe fighting like birds to steal your breath. You gulp and writhe like a fish jerking on the line. Your heart beats 1,000 times per second, and you're so busy trying to keep your lungs from exploding that you can't even scream. The vastness makes you small, microscopic. You know that when you fall, you will barely be a bloody dot in the midst of all this majestic hugeness. Second, being in the presence of a dragon is like Wheel of Fortune. You know, the game where you spin this huge wheel and you get whatever prize it lands on. It's like Wheel of Fortune, except all the prizes on the wheel are bad, like roasted alive, eaten alive, crushed by tail, impaled by claw, flown up into the sky and dropped 10,000 feet, etc. And the jackpot, the best slot out of the 100, the gold one with diamonds around it, is the one that says, you get to live, but you are scarred forever. Dang, smiles one of the kids, entranced. 3, being in the presence of a dragon is like. Solomon lurches up painfully and shouts as loud as he can with his formidable voice, Roar! The yell dies into coughs, and Solomon hugs his throbbing midsection. Worth it, though. Every one of those kids barely misses the ceiling, eyes wide, hearts palpitating. Then fear gives way to anger. They each vent out a few choice words. Then anger turns into laughter. They rib each other. Should have seen your face, son. Auntie Sheila has come running, and she is just so mad. It takes several minutes to convince her not to kick them all out. She gives Solomon stern instructions about what he is to do and not to do at this stage of his recovery. She stands there, eyebrows cocked to see if he wants to test. He's compliant, but with a twinkle in his eye. She sees it and lets it go, which continues to baffle the kids, especially Pebbles. Once things are settled, Solomon continues. Someone in this story was just about to be in the presence of a dragon right now, the midnight dragon. Someone had baked a very special cake and lowered it outside of the grand gate, an ancient custom to signify the desire for treaty discussion with the dragon folk. Someone had received an answer. For the first night in 3 decades, no fire went up into the sky. Instead, that night, a voice thundered through the wall. It was like 1,000 voices speaking as one, an otherworldly rasp, but loud as boulders cracking. It vibrated human chests and shook paintings off of walls. It woke all the children and made them cry, and some grown-ups too. Come, child of man, she boomed. Come alone. Come now. Meshon was not prepared. No time to gather sword or armor, even if he had been inclined to do so. His brother watched with almost merry eyes. He needn't have wasted his time sending men to kill his brother. The soft-headed fool had done it himself. Meshon shouted one last thing for the witnesses, for the people, for his brother. If I die tonight, he shouted, my brother shall wear the crown. He kissed his scepter. It is spoken, cried the witnesses, mourning their beloved king. And with nothing save the kingly blue robes on his back, he waited while 30 of the strongest men turned the rusted 30-year-old cranks and opened the massive doors inch by groaning inch. Not wide enough for a dragon, but just wide enough for a skinny, soft-headed outcast called king. No one wished him well or told him to be careful. Even his supporters were too shaken by the dragon voice to speak or even look. This was a funeral, not an adventure. Meshon walked out into the darkness, trying with all his might to keep his noodle legs from swaying. The door shut quickly behind him like the lid of a casket. He was left in darkness. His panicked breathing was embarrassingly loud in the silence. He quickly gave up trying to control it. His heart was beating wildly all over his chest, a frantic bird trying to escape. I am afraid, he said to himself. No need to pretend. She will know, so be it, but I will not run. Courage is not the lack of fear. It is walking the hard path through your fear, though you tremble and gasp the whole way. He saw 2 bright sapphires floating in the air before him, each one as big as his head. They emanated a smoldering glow. They bathed him in blue, otherworldly light. Son of Garshan, the dragon murmured, vibrating his soul with the deep plurality of her voice. I can smell your bloodline. Meshon was silent. Now that it came to it, he did not know what to say. She waited for an answer. The air became tense. He would soon be eaten for his insolence. I am he, great dragon, he answered. His voice trembled a bit less than he thought it would. I am Meshon, king of the 5 tribes. Why do you summon me? She asked. I have not tasted the dragon cake in 35 years. In the darkness, he could faintly see the glisten of her purple tongue flicker. That was a strange thing to say. As far as Meshon knew, it had been 1,000 years since the cake had been made, since anyone had sought audience with this beast. That can't be, Meshon murmured, more to himself than to the dragon. But the dragon was upon him in an instant, white teeth as tall as a man hovering inches from his face. The breath was smoky, pungent, bittersweet, like if you went to the rainforest, buried your face in the moist forest floor, and inhaled with all of your might. The smell of decay and rotting things, and the smell of birth and crawling things, and rain and earth. He almost gagged, but he valued his life. Your fragile, split second existence is closer to its end than ever before, growled the dragon. You will not question my honesty twice. The dragon folk do not lie. We are not man. Her lips pulled back in contempt when she said the word man, like it was a rancid taste on her tongue. But she wasn't done. I could eat you, you half snack of a man, and feel nothing. Not even a moment's respite from hunger. I eat 10 cattle for breakfast. You are less than a crumb to me. Then she spat acid to the ground next to his feet. It bubbled and burned greenly, gnawing the soil with a soft hiss. He jerked his foot away. At several points during his chastisement, Meishan considered falling to the ground and covering his face in a gesture of abject humility. But he somehow knew that to behave like prey would make him prey. He said simply, I hear and understand, great dragon. And it was enough. Why do you summon me? She asked again. As a king, I must seek to understand the world around me, he answered. I have questions that I think only the Midnight Dragon can answer. This was satisfactory. Ask on, she said. Meishan asked the question that had been gnawing at him his whole life. Why have you not crushed our walls? Approval flashed in her sapphire eyes. You ask well, she answered. Your walls are not even rice paper to me. I could have thrashed them into dust 10,000 times, and I would have if not for the truce and my handler. He almost blurted, What truce? But he had learned to measure his words. Can you tell me about the truce, great dragon? She replied, Your father came secretly. He came in the old way, bearing the dragon cake. She licked her lips. She fingered the point of a fang with her purple tongue, reflecting. His was delightful. I dream of it sometimes, she said, caught in a memory. But then she fastened her eyes on Meishan's. Yours was better, she hissed with a thrill of exultation. That is perhaps the only reason you still live and breathe. She shook herself, collecting her thoughts. The truce was simple. Your tribes would build spacious walls and stay there. And as long as your people stayed behind your walls and committed no acts of war, I would permit those walls to stand and only make a show of fire every night to keep your tribes in remembrance. A secret truce. It made sense. It was the campaign to build the walls that first united all 5 tribes behind his father. The dragon had been mostly absent during the 5 years it took to erect the walls. No one ever questioned these things, and doubly so after the tribal wars when his father's power became supreme. Great dragon, he asked, why make such a treaty if you could have killed us all? The dragon gave a simple answer. Because you are man, she said with the same contemptuous emphasis on the word. I don't understand, great dragon, he prodded. Of course not. To be man is to not understand oneself. I will teach you, King Meishan. I will teach you what you are. For the cake was sublime. You are man, and the foremost way of man is desire, and your desire is wider than the sea and is never filled, and the danger of man is his power. He breaks the horse and rides it. He breaks the ground and plants in it. He makes machines and rules over all things, bending them to his will. And we all, the bear folk, the sparrow folk, the fish folk, we all tremble. We all tremble at your mercy, though you know it not. For there is none like man, who demolishes forests to erect castles, who harvests tenfold what he needs and lets it rot in barns, who poisons the air with his potions and smokes, who, in his power, sits on the throne of his desire with his foot on the neck of all things, gorging himself with the plunder of the earth just because he can, because he is man. I could eat 10,000 of you, and still one day I would be in chains at your feet because you are man. Her eyes were so strange. They simmered with an alien mix between reverence and contempt for this little snack-sized trembling thing in front of her. You are like gods to us, she finished with a growl and a whine. Senseless, petty gods. And then she roared fire into the air, blue flame erupting into the sky as if to make him forget all she had just said in an awesome display of her power. Heat washed over him like warm bath water. And above all, she continued, you are highly favored by my handler, the one who sings up mountains, who dances upon the waves. Even the dragons purr in his lap, for he is the endless one. Even if I wanted to consume all mankind in the fire of my rage, I feel his cord around my neck, for he has bid me not to. Meishan had so many questions. He furrowed his brow, willing himself not to waste words. Then he heard the sound. The doors creaking open behind him, but swifter this time. Urgent. Light opened like an alien eye, piercing the darkness. The fragile spell between he and the dragon broke instantly. Treachery, murmured the dragon. What more can be expected from man? The opened gates revealed a contraption like a massive crossbow. The wicked blade of a single spear glimmered liquidly. Harshan had apparently been very busy these last years. There was a terrible noise, a creak and a snap so hard his eardrums thrummed with it. And blindingly fast, the spear sailed into the air, up and over his head and into the infinite blackness of the dragon's chest. The blade sank deep. There was a silence. The kind of silence you hear just before everything in the world changes. Then the dragon roared blood, a geyser into the air. Meishan was covered in a crimson robe. She would thrash now, and he would die beneath her colossal weight, as he deserved, for he was man. If this were not a time for adrenaline and terror, his tears would have been many and bitter to see such a noble creature mangled by ignorance, defiled by fear, to see his people fulfill their nature, exercising power from the throne of desire, glutting themselves upon conquest. But instead of thrashing, the dragon reached with wickedly clawed fingers and snapped the shaft of the spear, leaving the blade embedded. Her eyes roared blue flame, and she began to laugh, a terrible, rattling laugh. Dragons die very slowly, she cackled and coughed. Didn't you know? And now I will have all my fill of man. She lowered her head and charged. Suddenly, Meishan was lifted by strong hands, and he was flying over the ground out of harm's way. It was the four assassins, the shadows, who had been waiting for this moment to save their king. We have you, they cried, sprinting as if he weighed nothing at all, each holding an appendage. Meishan was back floating through the air. He looked back in horror over his blood-soaked chest as the dragon crashed through the gates. They did indeed look like rice paper beneath her oil-black serpentine weight. The air filled with ear-crushing noises. The screech of tearing metal, the dragon's hateful roar, the screams and shouts of terrified people, gouts of blue flame lit up the night. She rampaged through the city with horrific speed and power, maximizing carnage, roaring her pain and her hatred. Meishan watched helplessly. The grief and terror and rage were a bulge in the throat of his mind. It was all too much, by far, for him to swallow. His mind choked, suffocated. He began to black out. Room by room, the lights went out. Emotions, click. Hearing, click. Sensation, click. Seeing, click. Sweet darkness kissed his eyes. He had one last thought before his brain overloaded and blinked offline. We have lost everything because we are man. Auntie Sheila listens from the other side of the wall. Solomon's words move her. Not just the words, but what they are filled with. Knowing. This man knows pain. He is well acquainted with grief. His words are also filled with compassion. Somehow he has not been hardened by the pain, but set free. She puzzles and puzzles over this seeming vagrant, this grimy dumpster with treasure inside, and she remembers. She remembers the day the dragon came into her own city, the day she lost everything in fire and roar, the day her son was sentenced, the explosive sound of the judge's gavel, the empty chasm where her heart had been before. Her son, imprisoned for sitting on the throne of his desire for vengeance, the power of the gun he had held, imprisoned for being man, her son, her beloved and broken, damned fool of a son. She is standing there, back against the wall, out of sight. She thinks Solomon can't see her pain, but he can.